Alright, this is Amazing Spider-Man 1 by Nickelback Spencer, and this really has been one of the toughest videos I have had to date. I react very personally to Nickelback Spencer, very emotionally and very angry towards him for everything that he did to my favourite character, Captain America. But this comic, it has some problems, but it is definitely a step up from Dan Slott's run. Spider-Man, he has basically been the victim of attrition, and now any improvement at all seems miraculous. I honestly didn't like doing negative videos where I piss and moan, even though those are some of the most viewed ones. I much prefer reading good comics and talking about the good bits of comics. But with this one, the real debate is whether or not Nickelback Spencer deserves any praise for starters, but does he deserve a second chance? Nickelback Spencer, his first issue on Amazing Spider-Man, it shows some promise. But this is the same writer who did the most malicious and spiteful stuff. He completely and irreparably broke and destroyed Captain America. And it wasn't a mistake, it wasn't a bad idea, it was just flat out unprofessional, premeditated, petty shite. What he did, anyone who comes along and does what he did to a character or a franchise, it's not just him embarking on a bad direction or him doing stuff to purposely wind people up. What he did, it's like perverted mutilation. He made Captain America into a flippin' Nazi and didn't give us any of that shite about, oh, it's not the real Captain America, because it is. Marvel, they didn't know how reality warps work. I have shown this before in videos. They warped reality, and Captain America, he was remade as a Nazi in the new reality. You can just as easily get out of that by resetting it at the end, but they didn't. The one at the end, the supposed real Captain America, he is not real. He is a figment of imagination given form by the cosmic cube. He is someone else's imagined version of Captain America. He was created from thin air, from how someone thought Captain America should be. The real Captain America, the person that we have read about for decades, is the one whose history was altered to be a Nazi all along. He was the one that we read about and all those old stories and appearances. They were rewritten by the Cosmic Cube, and that version of Captain America, he remains the one who lived through all those things, and they were just changed. The one we have now, the person that we are told is Captain America, he is an imaginary version of the character. Like, the story, Secret Cream Pie, it goes out of its way to maintain the existence of that Nazi version, who is a warped version of the actual character. I fucking hate Nickelback Spencer, and he does not deserve to be on a book like Amazing Spider-Man. I can say that this issue isn't that bad. I can say that it is a breath of fresh air after Dan Slott. But by no means do I in any way condone Nickelback Spencer ever being allowed near a beloved major character again. What assurances do we have that 50 issues into this run, he isn't going to one day wake up and have a bad emotional response to something and then take it all out on Spider-Man? He might write 50 of the best Spider-Man issues ever, and then with issue 51, he gets bored and he decides to make Spider-Man into an anti-vaxxer, non-binary paedophile. I cannot in any way trust Nickelback Spencer to write this character. I cannot trust him to write any character. With all that said, I didn't mind this. I have criticisms and we'll come to them. Well, this is fine. It suggests some potential. He has Spider-Man get back with Mary James, which I think is a good first step to get a lot of people on board with his run. Here are two of my biggest criticisms. I'll start with this one out here since it also extends to the other one. Apparently, there is some essential backstory to this. There was a free comic book day giveaway Spider-Man one-shot. They refer to that here with Spider-Man meeting Kingpin Man. They also set up the other thing that I'll talk about in a few sentences' time. But, well, this is, let's see, this is $5.99. There is no excuse whatsoever to not include that free comic book day giveaway story here. If it was just like a little teaser or a preview, fine, didn't include that. But if it has got important developments and situations that you're going to refer to, fucking include it in this overpriced issue number 1. It's not like it's going to cut into profits from that comic that you gave away for free. My other criticism is Captain Boomerang. I hate Nickelback Spencer's version of Captain Boomerang. I like the character. He was great in Jeff Parkman's Thunderballs. I like him as a baddie. I like him in general. But I didn't like the goofy, doofus, jokey Nickelback Spencer version. I hated the old book by Nickelback Spencer, The Super Fours of Spider-Man. It was all one-note, unfunny rubbish. And if anyone knows about one-note, unfunny rubbish, it's a guy who has made 600 videos where he gets all the names wrong. Anyway, it turns out that Captain Boomerang, he is now Peter Parker's roommate. And it is a hilarious sitcom setup. Except Nickelback Spencer is not funny. A red flag for a lot of people might be Peter Parker's other roommate. You might make some assumptions about this guy and how he is going to be written. I will say that this character, it's calling back to the Richard Jenkins run from the early 2000s. He was Peter Parker's roommate in that run. And many of your initial fears about him are correct, except for all the racist ones. I actually went and I read the free comic book day one. I downloaded it. I didn't intend to read any more of this one, but I downloaded that, and it's honestly a shame that they didn't put it in this. It was only like 10 pages long, and it set up a lot of these new ideas, like this roommate stuff. It set them up much better. I think it even introduced Peter Parker and Spider-Man better than this issue does. What do you expect from Marvel though? They had a potentially satisfying first issue of Amazing Spider-Man, and they thought that the best course of action was to cut it up and make it seem inaccessible to new readers and feel off-putting to people who had picked it up at an inflated price and felt annoyed that they had missed key parts of the story. Hashtag unicorn selfie. And then we have a whole bunch of the Marvel Universe heroes, mostly in shitty costumes, on a big double-page spread fighting invading aliens. I'm torn on this. I cannot decide whether I like this or I don't. I think the first issue drawing attention away from its star is a bad thing, but then on the other side of the coin, I think that most people already know Spider-Man well enough that throwing in the Avengers for a little cameo or having the atrociously dressed Excellent Men, it's just a nice little bonus for the readers. Hashtag make She-Hulks a unicorn selfie again. I think that Spider-Man, he is written fine, but all the other characters are written annoying. They all speak with the same sarcastic, jokey voice, and that can work with Spider-Man, but when you have, like, the pointless cameo from the Galactical Guardians, or Hawkeye, or Luke Cage's, or this piece of cancer, or Iron Fist, when you have all of them speaking the same way, it's really bad. Spider-Man is written slightly to the model of the character we have seen under Dan Slott and Michael Bryan Benson. I found him nowhere near as annoying in this though. It was like Nickelback Spencer L. back, he had some restraint on it. Spider-Man, he does a lot of the unfunny quips, but it's not like an avalanche of them, and he doesn't have what are practically out loud conversations with himself about his own unfunny jokes. Kingpin Man, he is mayor of New York now. He's another character that Marvel seem to have become obsessed with. He's in like most of their books. He was in that Ravenclaw one prominently. He was in that awful issue of Captain America that I looked at. He's in this. He'll obviously be in Daredevil. He had his own series for like 5 days. According to the caption boxes, he was a main character in some cosmic crossover that nobody read. What is the appeal of this villain? I get maybe liking him, but liking him so much that he's in most of your books. He's not that good. This is a nice little scene though, with him trying to bribe Spider-Man. Spider-Man, he rejects the key to the city and stuff like that. Kingpin Man, his plan is to make all the other heroes resent Spider-Man and convince them that Spider-Man is like his paid shill. Quite a clever plan, to be honest, but the other heroes, like Daredevil and the Human Fire, they are written as already hating Spider-Man anyway. Nickelback Spencer seems to have been willing to ignore that these two in particular have been like Spider-Man's closest superhero friends since the 60s. Even were Kingpin Man's scheme in full swing, pun intended maybe, probably, they wouldn't buy it. They know Spider-Man personally and have for years, and they wouldn't believe that he would throw in with Kingpin Man. Then we have some more status quo building stuff, and this is both a bit cheap and a bit shit. The end result is that Spider-Man has to go back to school because idiots think that Spider-Man cannot grow up. And the way they do this is by referring to awful Dan Slott stories about superior Spider-Man. Just no thanks to that. Spider-Man, he also gets fired from the Daily Planet. Gosh darn that hard Parker look. But hey, look, it's the sexy supermodel not wife, Mary James. Although the last thing I think anyone wants is to have them back together and discussing in detail Dan Slott stories. The interesting thing is, we have this bit, ganning our their history together, and it's like they're actively trying to secretly retcon the whole deal with Satan thing by just never mentioning it ever. The amount of bad luck that they deliver to Spider-Man in this issue is overbearing. I cannot stand them writers who think that Spider-Man being really unlucky is a hallmark of the character. It's one thing to be unlucky, it's another thing entirely to be so repeatedly shat upon by every possible part of your life. I knew this was going to be a long one. I've got this advert here, fold out for Dan Slott's Fantastic Force. No thanks, please. And then there is Felicity. We like her. She's there for a single panel, written quite well, probably the best part of the comic. And it turns out the aliens, they weren't real. They were just Mysterium using his trademark special effects. Spider-Man beats him very quickly. So I really hope that Nickelback Spencer, he isn't going to come back and try and do a big Mysterium story where we're meant to take him serious as a threat when Spider-Man beat him in one page in the first issue. And Spider-Man, him and Mary James, they're definitely back together now. They're doing a kissing and all that stuff. We also have a completely needless second story starring Mysterium and also one of Nickelback Spencer's other Super 4s of Spider-Man characters. I just didn't really care about this. This is probably setting up a story arc. And then right at the end, we have a new villain. Because what Spider-Man has been missing all these years is Phantomon in a trench coat. Then even more, right at the end, the last thing in the issue is a little bit with Spider-Man going back to school. And, his teacher is Lizard Man. What's he gonna learn from him, eh? Oh, and there is a female version of Elektra now. Girl power and that. Now more feminist than just taking the identity and reputation of a white man, is there? Nickelback Spencer, he writes a decent first issue here, but why should I care? Why should anyone care? Why should anyone trust Nickelback Spencer for the controlled demolition that he did to Captain America? To make up for that, it requires more than just an okay run on Spider-Man. If he writes the best Spider-Man run ever, that doesn't make up for it. At best, that can maybe cancel out what he did before. It'd have to be a fucking good run, mind you. Like, it would require him to hit some highs that I do not think he is capable of. To even come close to just getting to an equal pegging to any other writer. Does he deserve a second chance? Does he deserve a chance to redeem himself? Absolutely. You are seeing it here. But just because he isn't being as awful as he was, or because he is writing something that is not bad, that doesn't mean that he has redeemed himself. I didn't want to talk about Nickelback Spencer anymore on this channel. I hate him, but it is nice to see him maybe trying to earn back trust and respect. I would love if he did make up for Captain America, but I am not along for a ride with a man that I do not have any faith in for good reason. I'm not recommending this. You might read it, you might like it, you might get into the run, but then he might reveal his big agenda was having Spider-Man drown Down syndrome babies or some shite. I'm not even rating it anything.